This episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 297 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. So glad you've joined me, and if this is your first time listening, welcome, and I hope you'll come back for more and take time to follow us and leave us a review wherever you might be listening. Looking forward to you hearing from my guest today, LaDonna Carey. And LaDonna is an old friend, and she is right here in Kingsport, Tennessee, where I'm located. So you're going to get the sheer pleasure of hearing two East Tennesseans go on about counseling and therapy. But LaDonna is a wonderful therapist, and I know we've spent a lot of time referring back and forth to each other. But the funny thing is we were trying to remember if we've ever actually talked in person, and I don't think that we have. But anyway, LaDonna is really an expert in betrayal trauma, and that's been kind of her niche, and she has got some upcoming retreats that are going to be happening in October, and you can find out more about that in the show notes and the show summary. But looking forward to you hearing from LaDonna in this conversation where we just talk about maybe an aspect of marital therapy and survivors of, when I say survivors, I mean folks that have gone through maybe some sort of betrayal in their relationship. So it's an interesting conversation. But before we get to that, real quickly, I'd love for those of you that are out there that are in those beginning stages of running a private practice, I'd love for you to find out about the Practice Launch Club. And if you don't know about that, you can go over to practiceoftherapy.com/launch club. And throughout the month of September, which we've only got a week or two left of this month, I'm offering a discount for the membership. And if you'll just use the promo code PLC Fall 2023, you can get $20 off the membership of that membership. The Practice Launch Club is specifically for those folks that are in those beginning stages of starting a private practice. And we get together twice a month to just talk about things that we're working on. And also there's a series of lessons that are available with that in an online format that you can watch at your leisure and learn from. So be sure to check it out. practiceoftherapy.com/launch club. And also real quickly here before we get to my conversation with LaDonna, I'd love for you to hear more from one of the members of the Psychcraft network, along with our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes.
Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I am Nathan Hawkins. If you don't know us yet, we are the voices behind the Shrink Think podcast, which is part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts.
We are so proud to be a part of this network, along with the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, and the great work he is doing to help people in their journeys.
And if you haven't discovered the Shrink Think podcast, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love for you to join us as we seek to help you with your relationships, your healthcare practices, and your therapy journey.
Join us as we bridge the gap between clients and therapists And be sure to check us out at shrinkthink.com/podcast and take our free e-course.
And have a great day.
One of the keys to a successful private practice is having the right systems and processes in place to make things run as smoothly as possible. With a system like Therapy Notes, you'll have more time to spend with what matters most, your clients. Therapy Notes is a complete practice management system with everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with patients remotely, create rich documentation, and bill insurance right at your fingertips. Their streamlined software is accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Your clinical records will be secure with less paperwork, which means you can give a much better quality of care. It's the EHR that Gordon uses in his practice. Be sure to check them out today by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and be sure to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really, in one way, I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't had LaDonna on here before. But LaDonna, welcome, LaDonna Carey.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. We kind of crossed paths for years.
Yes, we have. Yeah. LaDonna and I are in the same town, which is crazy that we were just talking about how we've talked to each other, we've texted each other, we've referred to each other, and just never have spoken in person.
Yeah. So it's a great new beginning.
Yeah, it is. So LaDonna, I'm so glad you're with me on this, and I'm sure we'll be doing this again. But as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Okay, I sure will. I've got a master's in clinical psychology, and I've been doing private practice since 1989. So a few years under my belt there. I've done a few things through the years. I've always done my private practice. I did the contract at Eastman Chemical for about 17 years to do their on-site EAP program. Mm-hmm. I taught at ETSU in the psych department for about 6 years as adjunct and taught personality and intro to psych and health psychology. So that was a lot of fun. And these last years, I guess, pretty much since COVID, I've just been doing private practice. But actually, I've added doing some continuing education courses. And I have a group that's called Gathering Our Hearts. That's for women who have gone through betrayal trauma. And I do different groups with them virtually, kind of psychoeducational and self-care groups. And so I kind of bounce doing a lot of different things.
Right. Well, I know LaDonna has a great reputation in town, and I'm so glad that I can say I'm kind of loosely associated with her just by location as much as anything. And another fun fact is LaDonna's daughter-in-law actually worked for me earlier on as an intake coordinator. So it's a small world, but sometimes we just don't cross paths like we should. But yeah.
It's amazing, even in a small town, that we don't run into each other more.
I know it. It's crazy. Well, LaDonna, I know one of the things we're going to be talking about is just betrayal trauma. So maybe for folks that are out there that might not, I think most people would understand what you mean by that, but why don't you kind of define how you see betrayal trauma and what that looks like?
I tell you, when I'm talking with therapists that I'm training with it, or talking with clients who come in, the term that I use usually is life quake, that it's really just like everything that you've known in your life is turned upside down, and the whole foundation of what you thought it was. So essentially, betrayal trauma is when the person that you rely on to take care of you and being your partner and holding commitments, that's really a part of your security and what you think is your secure attachment through an attachment lens. you find out that maybe they have a hidden life, or maybe they're having an affair, or financial infidelities, maybe addictions that you really weren't aware of. And it's the traumatic part of it is I'm looking at somebody that I thought I've known for years, and I realize I don't know you at all because you could deceive me in that way and be okay with it.
Right. Yeah,
so
I know.
Really just
Go
the
ahead.
aftermath.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that's one of the things that it's been a few years, but I know when I went through some of the Gottman training, we were talking about, a big part of any marriage counseling stuff is that you're going to be dealing with affairs and betrayal and that sort of thing. And I think looking through it and looking at it through the trauma lens is probably a very smart way to go about it.
Yeah, I have people contact me, typically 3 or 4 people a day, who are looking for somebody who's experienced in betrayal trauma. And that was one of the reasons I decided to do the continuing ed course, because these folks were saying, I went to see some therapists and I felt betrayed by them because they didn't know what I was talking about. And it's not anything that we learn in school. Even when I was going through school, we weren't talking about trauma. I've learned all that through the years after grad school.
Right.
So there's really a need for therapists to be able to meet the need of the number of clients that are going through betrayals. And I think that just continues to escalate with internet access to just about anything that you want to find and the covert nature of that. And I work with folks who are going through the gray divorce, midlife divorce, unexpected most times. And it seems like that there's a lot of betrayal and hidden lives that go along with that population too.
Right. I know I've had several over the years that same scenario. So when you're in your training and when you're thinking about this, what are some of I know this is a very broad question, but what are some of the things that that you think are important for people to think about in working with betrayal trauma, just through a clinical lens?
I think to be able to assess for the complex PTSD symptoms, to recognize that typically when there's betrayal trauma, there's some form of PTSD. And depending on the length of it, if there's emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse that's gone on, if it's been addictions over a period of time, then you're going to see the complex PTSD that's occurring there. And to recognize, the first thing that we have to be able to do is to help our clients find some level of security, kind of finding their feet again and their footing again after a life quake. And until that happens, they're not going to get over it. A lot of the clients that I see have said, people are tired of it because they're just not over it yet. But maybe they're going through what I call trickle truths. That they're finding out a little bit at a time, and their spouse may be saying, that's all of it, that's all I did. And then you find something else, and more kind of trickles and trickles and trickles. And our folks, while that trickle truth is going on, they're not going to have stability. So they're not going to be able to get over it. They can't even start healing until they have some sort of stabilization.
Yeah. What do you see as maybe the steps to building trust again? I know there's really, one of the ways I've heard it put, and I can't remember exactly where I heard this. I'm sure it was at a conference, but when a couple or is facing betrayal trauma, really the person on the receiving end has 3 choices. They can either accept the status quo, they can get out, divorce, or they can do what they need to do. Both partners do what they need to do to change the relationship and change change the nature of their relationship. So if you think, I know one of the biggest hurdles is developing that trust again. And what are you finding that helps with that? Other than, as I like to say, you got to play with your hands on the table for a while.
Yeah.
And so,
for a long while, forevermore, actually.
Yeah.
And when I went through the PAC training, one of the big things that we talk about in that is just openness and transparency. That everything has to be open, everything has to be transparent, and that's the very beginning stages. But what I tell folks when they ask about how do you build trust again, it's the betrayer's responsibility to be trustworthy. So what sorts of things are you willing to do to demonstrate that you're trustworthy? And also, what kind of things do you understand from your partner that they need in order to start even opening themselves to, are you trustworthy or not? There's going to be a lot of skepticism, probably optimistic skepticism. I hope that I can trust you. Sometimes we desperately need to trust our partner, that what they're saying is true. But to get the couple to talk about what is it that the betrayer really needs to do. Now, sometimes in the therapy that I've done, wants to step up and say, well, but here are the things you need to be doing. What I remind them is that your spouse didn't betray your trust. You're the one that's kind of blown things up with the betrayal, whatever it is. So you got to do the first groundwork here. You have to start working on the stabilization with it. So are you going to share all of your passwords? Are you going to be okay with, I think it's Life 360, where everybody knows where everybody is on the phones? Are you willing to do what you're saying you're going to do? And recognize that trust really kind of begins around the perimeter. We're going to start small. And if you say, I'm going to the store and picking up a loaf of bread, you go to the store and you pick up a loaf of bread, and that's what you do. And it's the amount of time to go get a loaf of bread, and you don't take your phone with you. You go and show that you're trustworthy with it.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important is to create an empathy for what your partner's going through. So for the betrayer, one of the exercises that we do is to write an empathy letter, which is a statement of, here's my understanding of what you're going through emotionally and what I've created with this, and to have some dialogue with the couple in that regard. Another thing I talk to them about are their attachment styles. And typically what you see with a person who maybe has been a serial cheater, has addiction issues such as that, you typically see more of the avoidant attachment style. And an interesting thing about the person who has been betrayed is that you can have a state attachment style. They may have had a secure attachment style until everything blew up around them, and then they're going to move into an insecure attachment style, of course, because there's a lot of insecurity that's there. So helping the couple be able to understand that and to navigate that, and what do we need to do with their particular attachment style individually that'll help us move more to a secure attachment again.
Yeah. And that's always the hard part to me, seems to be when they're at that place where maybe the person that has perpetrated the mistrust, I don't know if that's a good way to put that, but that's how I think about it. If they are doing all of the things to try to be transparent, but their partner is still just really leery and just really having a hard time with it, and just really still working through that, when they maybe feel falsely accused of stuff, when they've really done nothing wrong in the present.
Yeah, part of the way I address that is to help educate about PTSD and complex PTSD and the triggers that are going to be there, and how are we going to navigate these triggers together as a couple.
Right.
And really the research that I've read, the discussions I've had with other therapists and the trainings and such that I've been through with this, it's not unusual. It's a 4 to 5 year period of time before the betrayed person really can start catching their breath a little bit.
Right.
So it's not a quick fix. And when you're the person who's betrayed, and that's very uncomfortable, and we don't like being accused, we don't like not being trusted, helping them to be able to understand the experience of the betrayed, also understanding how they can regulate their own emotions.
Yeah.
Because, with avoidant attachment, they've avoided any of those emotions and numbed themselves out to it for probably most of their life. So to help them learn how to be patient and how to help their partner through those triggers, because that's part of what solidifies the relationship even more over time too. And helping them understand this is going to be a while. And I use the analogy, if somebody gets busted up in a car wreck and they're in the hospital for a while, and then they're going to rehab, and then they're going to physical therapy, and they're learning how to walk again, it's going to take a good period of time. And we're just emotionally devastated when we're blindsided by betrayal. And so that's going to take a good period of time too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that analogy because, and I've used that before, of just comparing it to a physical wound, and that it takes time to heal, and it has to come from the inside out, but it doesn't, the person that created the wound needs to be aware of when they're poking at the wound or they're doing things that are gonna not help the wound to heal. Yeah. That's good.
And it's a tough spot for both people, and sometimes people, in going back to, we've got the 3 choices. I did the discernment counseling training, which talks about those, are we just going to call it quits right now? Are we going to do some more work to see if we want to be together, or are we ready to commit to marriage counseling and really both commit to that? So I've backed up with some couples sometimes and said, it sounds like, we got folks leaning in and out, to use Gottman's words. And so let's figure out what we're doing here, and let's just put it all on the table. And I work real hard with my couples and with my individuals. I'm very open and transparent with them. And I feel like it's my job, you're paying me to maybe say some things that are going to be difficult for you to hear, but that I know are really important for you to hear. So let's figure out how we can all work on the secure attachment in the therapy room, that I'm not saying anything that just to be mean or ugly or to shame in any way, but there are things that really need to be brought out, and whatever emotions that brings up in you, let's talk about that, because we can talk about how you guys can soothe each other while that's going on.
Right. That's good. Yeah. So just switch gears a little bit, LaDonna, why don't you tell folks a little bit? I know you've got a retreat coming up that sounds exciting, and some of the other trainings that you're doing.
Yeah, I am so excited about the retreat because it's in Hilton Head, which is one of my most favorite places. The name of it is Navigating the Storm, and, with betrayal trauma being the storm, and really the therapist role in helping clients through that. I've partnered up with a trauma yoga master. She's in California. So she's going to come in and do a couple of days of just mind-body work and trauma yoga work, to instruct the therapists who are there about that aspect of it, how to help their clients really to ground themselves. And then I'm doing 2 days of training. There's 14.5 hours of continuing ed with it. And we're going to talk about betrayal trauma, emotional and verbal abuse, ethics of it, different treatment modalities, and we're going to do some of it in the gorgeous beach house that we have. We're going to do some of it by the pool, and we're going to do some of it by the beach, because my thought is we work hard, so we need to play hard. And if we can play on the beach and get continuing ed, that's a good thing. Yeah. I'm also doing some marketing with that, how to market your individual practice, how to market your couples work, how to do intensives, and how to market that. So there should be a really good package that you come away from the retreat. So yeah, super excited about that. And then the other,
where can people find that?
Well, I've got a link on my Facebook page that is just LaDonna Carey Counseling.
We'll have links in the show notes and the show summaries for people for that. I've seen the website and it looks like a beautiful location. Hilton Head, if people aren't familiar with it, it's on the coast of South Carolina, and it is one of the most beautiful locations in the Southeast as far as beaches go.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous, and we're going October the 22nd through the 26th, and all of the locals say don't tell people to come in October because it's the best time of the year to be in Hilton Head.
It is.
So we're going to come down there. We got, if you've ever been to the Jazz Corner in Hilton Head, we got tickets to go to Jazz Corner and see these guys on Sunday night when we get there, which is just a treat to do. So we got a pretty good balance. So we're going to have some fun and learn some things. The other thing that I added to the retreat, because I think it's really important, is we're going to have 6 months of consultation with the folks who come to the retreat, so that we can stay in touch monthly with each other, talk about our cases, and really kind of build that community and continue to grow together. So I'm excited about that part of it too.
Awesome. Are there any other parting thoughts that you have around the things that you're doing?
Well, if anybody has any questions about them, of course they can email me or give me a call, either one. I'm at contact@LaDonnaCarey.com, or my website is LaDonnaCarey.com. There's a contact spot there that you can just click and send me an email. I'm really passionate about helping therapists be able to help folks who are going through this. And like my 3-hour continuing ed course is $39. So I want to make it achievable. And I've paid a whole bunch for trainings over the years. I've been very fortunate in being able to do that. And the more that I can share at a price that's beneficial, that's going to help folks be able to grow their practice and their skill set, I'm very invested in doing that. So certainly send me an email if you're interested in that. I can send you a link to the different courses that I'm teaching. And another thing I'm doing, I'll say this quickly, I have a Third Thursday Therapist book club. It's a virtual book club, and we just started that a couple of months ago. I had Jennifer Parker there, and she talked to us about her book, Coercive Relationships. Last month, Jen Towns came on, and she talked about, the name of her book is Our Deepest Roots, and it's about an attachment lens and queer relationships and the betrayal trauma that folks go through in that regard. And I'm on vacation in September. In October, we've got an author coming in that's going to talk about betrayal trauma and religious trauma. So, if folks want to log into that, You can send me an email, or the website for that is betrayalrecoverycenter.com/book club. And that'll
Awesome.
take you to where you can sign up, and then I send emails out with our Zoom links.
Awesome. And we'll have those links so you can get in touch with LaDonna in the show notes and the show summary. So, well, LaDonna, we need to get together for coffee. I mean, it's just, there's no excuse for us. So
yes, we need real life interaction. I agree. We will do that.
Yes. Well, thanks, LaDonna. And I'm sure LaDonna will be coming back on the podcast again before long. Well, again, a big thanks to LaDonna for joining me on the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed listening in on our conversation. LaDonna is one of those, what do we call ourselves, the old guard, the OG therapist that's been around for a little while, and I love being able to learn from folks like LaDonna. She's had a world of experience, and I feel fortunate to count her as one of my colleagues here in Kingsport, Tennessee. And if you've never been to this part of the world, I would invite you to come. It's a beautiful place right here in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. So again, hopefully this is helpful. I know I really enjoy delving into these clinical topics and kind of move away from the business end of things at times. But also, as LaDonna mentioned, she's got an upcoming retreat in beautiful Hilton Head, South Carolina. And if you've never been to Hilton Head, it's one of my favorite beaches to go to. It's really a lot of fun to go to, and it's close to Savannah, Georgia on the map, but it's actually in South Carolina. But it's a beautiful place, and I think what she's got arranged and the retreat that she's going to have is going to be really helpful for folks. So be sure and check it out. You'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also, if you are in those beginning stages of running a private practice, I'd love for you to find out more about the Practice Launch Club. And the membership doors are open, and you can go find out more about it by going to practiceoftherapy.com/launch club, and be sure and use the promo code just PLC Fall 2023 to get $20 off your monthly membership through the month of September. And at the end of September, that deal will go away. So jump on it now if you're listening to this. And also, a big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes. They're the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and I have no intention of ever changing. They are constantly adding to their platform, and I'm really impressed with all the work that they do behind the scenes and helping us in our practices. It's really a wonderful platform, and so I can highly recommend it. Be sure and check it out by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes and use that promo code Gordon, just GORDON, to try it out for 2 months for free. So take care, folks. We're getting close to episode number 300, and it's going to be a special episode with a special guest. More to come on that. Take care, folks, and we'll be talking again with you next week. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.